Welcome. Hi, Peter here. Thank you for joining us for our 16th virtual reading. Can't believe it's that long. Anyway, we're glad to see you in person. We can't wait to write with you glad to see you Zooming here virtually. And I can't wait till we can be with you in person, whenever that will be. I'd like to thank my Murphy Writing colleagues, Stephanie Colley and Taylor Coyle, who make this and all our other programs happen. Tonight, we're featuring four readers who are recent scholarship winners to our Winter Poetry and Prose Getaway. They are Jung Hae Chae, Erin Jin Mei O'Malley, Rebecca Rodriguez, and Lynne Schmidt. And next week, at the same time, 7 o'clock, we have a special guest, Kim Adnisio, who will be reading. So we hope to see you then next Friday. And if you missed our previous virtual readings, the previous 15, or would like to re-experience them, you can go to our Murphy Writing YouTube page. Stephanie will put the link in the chat box so you can just bookmark it there. And this reading tonight will also be up there. So if you want to catch it again, you'll be able to do that for eternity, because I think the internet will go on forever, right? I think so. Yeah. Also, check out our daily writing prompts on our Canvas page. Each morning, Monday to Friday, we put up a brand new prompt, and we have a place where you can write. Well, you can write it on your own, and a place where if you want to, you can post it and perhaps get feedback from other people. And 2 days a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, we have a write-in where we write together. That'll be this Monday at 4 p.m. And usually it's Wednesdays at 7 p.m., but we have a conflict. And so it's going to be Wednesday at noon. And I'll tell you about the conflict on Monday. So this Monday at 4 p.m. and next Wednesday at noon for our write-ins. And next Friday for Kim Adnisio at 7. All right, those are the big dates. We are also offering a few programs where we have a sliding fee scale. One of them is a spoken word workshop for high school students or people close to high school age, not me. And that's on a scale. So if you know people of high school age, or perhaps you are feeling younger than you actually are, go to the Murphy Writing website and you'll see it. And then on Saturday, August 1st, we're offering a one-day short story workshop led by Jade Jones. And it's a compression workshop. And again, that's on the sliding fee scale. We have a 5-week course, and it's not a sliding fee scale. And Stephanie will be leading. It's a poetry workshop. Again, murphywriting.com, and you'll find out all of this information. Enough of the commercials. You didn't come here to see me or hear me. You came here to hear our readers. So here, let's welcome, please, Jung Hae Chae, Erin Jin Mei O'Malley, Rebecca Rodriguez, and Lynne Schmidt.
Jung, hang on 1 second. We can't seem to hear you.
Try it now.
We cannot hear you still. No, what happened? We heard you just a moment ago. Let's come back to you, Jung. Let's troubleshoot. So we're headed to Erin instead.
Hi, I'm really excited to be reading a few poems today. Okay, this is called Another Letter, This Time Ending with Rain, for G. That night at the tennis court with no score and still no love. Instead, we played the game where we both pretended our hands were toy weapons. You chose rock, and I envied the miniature crescent moons waning from your palms. You showed me how to make a fist out of my own longing, and I learned how easily I bruise. I tried to make myself cover your hand in mine, but more than anything, I wanted you to win. We never tied, and I won imaginary wound after imaginary wound. Any injury can be a game if you let it. I'm sorry, my lower lip is a sore loser. Actually, I borrowed that apology from a month ago. Let me tell you something true. I'm tired of only being honest in my sleep. In my head, we slow danced until the distance between us widened to loneliness. I was holding the door in my arms, waiting for you to exit my dream. And then all the rain, how it fell straight down because it had nowhere else to go. So I feel like in my writing, I sort of like oscillate between writing about sort of rural Pennsylvania and the internet. So yeah, this is rural Pennsylvania, and then you'll probably get a sense of when we're back to the internet. 4th degree burn, 3rd degree arson. I did it. I committed a felony against an empty barn and all the sweet oxygen inside of it, made a pyre of the stable and retired the silo to ash like an old American flag. I've always loved the smell of hay. Newspapers, anything with the potential to be doused in an erasure wept by gasoline and a cigarette lighter. All I'm guilty of is my romance with the blood-red head of a match. How thirst is addicted to water, to love what will always leave you empty-handed. But what do I know about love? I have 2 hands, but only one body with no one beside me. And there are 4 types of arson and just 2 kinds of people, those who burn and those who burn. I brand everything I touch with the smell of burning, and I touch myself until my hands relapse as smoke signals. This next one is called, I changed my Tinder bio to, this is RuPaul's Drag Race, not RuPaul's Best Friend Race. After returning from another date asking, was that even a date? I know how this goes. You less than 5 miles from my location, and my loneliness still closer. You swipe right for any number of wrong reasons. You're looking for someone familiar enough to forgive, or trying to abandon yourself of heartbreak. You want an exit from your lone self in the shape of an unstruck matchbox. You want me to be your friend. I want you to reread my bio, to turn my cheek away from loneliness, the history of all the things I haven't done with my mouth, to lie to, beside, with me, to use whichever preposition becomes a false mirror for the way absence stares the sight of you into a sad song, but silly me. When have I ever looked at a mirror and seen anyone looking back besides myself? How foolish of you and I to believe we could cure ourselves of ourselves. This is the blame we share like a secret, the mistake that makes you guilty of all my regret and unmakes me the casualty of my own crime. No one but me made me like this, a litany of solitary things, a sickness with no antidote, a playlist of only one song, over and over again, a wick refused by flame, alone. No one asked the question of my body and what it's doing Saturday night except the moon. I didn't even come here for love. I just want to be with whoever will keep me from missing no one in particular, but you know this. You know that the worst part of being lonely is being surrounded by the unbearable echo of your own face, for the ugliest part of yourself to be the only part of yourself that a mirror ever remembers. If the mirror is the single thing that can hold all our lonesome selves in its gaze, what will happen when the lights go out? If I unmatch us from the moon's glow, what will become of our bodies when even our reflections forget us? This next one is another poem in a series of poems that I've been writing about Tinder and about, I guess, dating apps and technology and romance in general. And it's called Self-Portrait as the Dead Fish in Some Guy's Tinder Profile Picture. Maybe there's something tragic about the wide open choke of my mouth, but I am so gorgeous in the camera's gaze. I take everyone's breath away. I am a noun, and my name is also the word for how men describe the action of killing me. A group of fish is called a school, but I've learned a single fish hanging from the hook of a silver flash is called a proverb. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you foreshadow him, holding me in hands that foreshadow fists. The glisten of my viscera in daylight. The plural of fish is the same as its singular, and look, I knew this was coming. Nature's grammar of beauty as symmetry, and the noun-verb agreement, both explaining why I die and die again when the lens butchers me into a million flawless pixels. Look at how my body catches the light. You don't name something without wanting to hold it under your tongue and call it anything but yours. This next one is sort of still like on the topic of the internet, but it's yeah, I guess sort of a series about some of my favorite musicians or music artists. Ode to fantasizing about Hayley Kiyoko, aka Lesbian Jesus, ending with a prayer in reverse. Yes, I was floating, but only face down, wholly only like a sacrifice. And yes, the lake was the only body we knew of that could hold rain without opening its mouth to the sky. It was July. Your voice swayed to that dark song of summer resting after us. It was September, and yes. It was November, and yes. It was January, and yes, until it became too cold to keep returning, but yes. We sat at the lake's edge, blurred dull like a knife, waiting for the tide to teach us nearness, how to wade into someone's arms, how to undress our names from each other. Oh, how thirst is the same name for two different kinds of desire, to swallow and be swallowed. How I drank the rosary of water beaded like pearls on your collarbone, and you scattered a field of night on my neck so blue it would have been a lake if not for the dirt I dug my fingernails into, my hands searching only for the way to hold in a sigh, to say yes without moving my lips towards sound. Oh, how thirst is to bless the body with your staying for the brief season of track 7, the hymn of me biting my cheek until I taste only the memory of your red carpet dress. And yes, I've always prayed, only never to the right God. Amen, amen, I say to you. Show me how to bend into a parable of belonging, which is to say, remake me knee-deep in your image. Hold me into forgetting where my body begins. I will kneel under the roof of your mouth. My mouth born again from belief in a woman's jawline, another edge where I will wait for you to baptize me in the blood of the only wound I want to keep. Only you, dear God. How am I doing on time? Okay, cool. I will read one more. So this is called Ode to Moshing at Bikini Kill's first show in 20 years. At any other concert, it begins with a trilogy of imitation. Some girl's old driver's license, my silver chain real enough only to rust, and my full moon cheeks searching the night for shadows, angles at which I can unbecome a girl I look nothing like. Ends with at least one of these fakes fooling someone, but at least I get in the door. I'm there until the encore, or a boy or girl mistakes me for a boy or girl, the venue locking up, or the welt of someone's fatal language, whichever is first to kick me out. Violence is never the answer, but somehow always the choke blue question that pretends it's better to ask for anatomy than permission or forgiveness. At any other concert, it's the song all the bruiseless throats sing along to. But I'm here, and it's tonight, and it's never been tonight before. The stage lights go down, turning the volume of the voices in the pitch black room the fuck up. Bikini Kill starts playing Rebel Girl, and I scream. Feel the lyrics rip from my vocal cords. My mother calls this genre of music brutality. I call it reunion. This is how I raise my voice from the dead. Each time someone stage dives into the river of riot girls, we chant a moat of sound around us. We wall of death ourselves, crowding the room with our afterlife, the one where we are most safe, slamming our bodies into themselves until they become our own. When we shed the terminology of our pasts like old blood cells. The first time I ever moshed was in a stranger's backyard. I pushed myself into the gravel of what I would call a song, and what my mother would call a cry for help. A certain myth of that night says we moshed so hard we shook the peaches from their trees. Some would call the way we crushed the ripe fruit beneath our combat boots a tragedy, but we know how any sweet thing with a pit will bruise. Man was made mortal, but we are not men. We retell our genesis beginning with death, call it legend or remix, for our graves are meant only for the names we've chosen to bury. When my body falls, let it fall where it may. The soil was made soft just for us. Thank you so much.
Hello.
I think we can hear you, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Okay, I couldn't hear you. All right. Okay, well, that's hard to follow, Erin, always, because she's a beast. Okay, just 1 minute here. All right, so I've been for a couple of weeks now working on a novel that I've been attempting to write, a kind of mainstream novel. So I decided that that's what I'm going to share from. I post it weekly on Wattpad, if you're familiar with that website. So I'm actually going to start with chapter 3, because I think you can kind of figure out what's going on without reading the first 2 chapters. So in this scene, I guess, or in this chapter, my character is wearing an eye patch because she got into a little bit of an accident. So last minute, I kind of whipped up an eye patch. So I'm just gonna show you. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna read with this eye patch on, but then I discovered that it's really hard to read with this. So just to give you a visual, but now I'm gonna take it off. Okay. All right. All right. You can never find anyone on this fucking floor to help you, a woman said while shaking her head. This place is worse than fucking Walmart. She looked in my direction, waiting for me to agree with her. The worst part about having to wear an eye patch to work is convincing the customers that, yes, you are an employee of said establishment and not of a pirate ship. I glanced down at my red Save-A-Lot shirt, looked back up at the woman and smiled, blinking my eye faster than socially acceptable. How may I assist you today? She cocked her head back and squinted her eyes. I could read the embarrassment on her face that she would never in a million years apologize for. Instant dry yeast? Right this way, I said. She kept a steady 5 steps behind as she followed me, perhaps worried that I would lead her into a dark alley and rob her or something. Here we are, I said to her with a smile. And not a bitchy smile either, because I was no longer in a bitchy mood about my glasses, and because today was payday and I had already decided to treat myself to a flat iron steak from Outback when I got off. I held out the yeast to her. We only have Fleischmann's. Is that all right? That's fine, she said, grabbing it out of my hand. You know, you could have just said I'll 7. She turned and began to walk away. I held my smile while I processed this comment, and the moment she turned out of view, my fist clenched and my jaw tightened. There she is, said Zeke. I turned to find Zeke crouched down stalking almond flour at the top of the aisle. It took me a few seconds to figure out exactly what it was he meant. At first, I thought he was calling me out for dodging him all day, which meant that he actually noticed I hadn't been around. But then I realized it was probably toward my reaction to this bitch and her yeast. You saw that shit, right? I said. What the actual hell? That's why you're the best, he said. He stood and walked over, coming closer to me than he had been lately. Can you imagine that woman talked to Virginia like that? He laughed. We'd have a lawsuit on our hands. I pushed my shoulders back and swept my hair behind my ear. Virginia would have never physically shown her where the yeast was in the first place, I said. I broke his gaze when I realized that if I was looking directly into his eyes, then he was looking directly at my eye patch, an eye patch I picked out when I was 11 years old, that I had thought was so cool because it was bedazzled. So instead, I looked straight ahead and stared at his sternum. And that's when I noticed the brightness of his shirt, how deep red it was compared to mine, realizing that mine was basically pink now, that perhaps that yeasty bitch genuinely didn't know I was an employee, not because I was wearing an eye patch, but because my shirt was that faded, because I had been given a new shirt, because I hadn't been given a new shirt in over 4 years, and it wasn't like I hadn't asked for one numerous times. Maybe we should be taking notes from her after all, he said, inching just a centimeter closer. Maybe, I said. I remembered that I hadn't washed my hair in 6 days, and because he was so tall, he was probably looking directly down at my greasy head. I took a step back. I should get back to what I was doing. I began to turn around. Hey, Kate, he began, following the step I had just taken. He was the only person who called me Kate, which I loved, and I guess that was because Kate sounded so much older and put together than Katie. Definitely older than I felt, and since Zeke was older, it made me feel like he saw me that way, like someone he could actually have a conversation with. I wanted to talk to you about something, he said. I had been waiting for this conversation to understand why he hadn't reached out back to me after his rehab. When I was around 10, my mom started going to AA meetings in the basement of this church. She would bring me, leaving me in the lobby, to the 8 p.m. meetings, usually without feeding me dinner first. So in a desperate attempt at finding a snack, I discovered that the church's kitchen door was left unlocked. And from the kitchen, I could hear the entire meeting, including every fucked up thing my mom admitted to doing. I actually paid attention, and so I knew for a fact that when you're trying to get sober, you don't date anyone for the first year, something my mother never followed, because relationships can be stressful. And so I waited that year, plus an additional 3 months, and still nothing. But what confused me the most was that Zeke and I were never actually in a relationship to begin with, at least not like officially. And because we weren't in an official relationship, there was no stress. So I didn't get it. And it's not like I ever did drugs with him. I mean, we went out for drinks here and there, but it wasn't like I was this avid drinker and that's all I ever wanted to go out and do. We used to just do dumb shit like watch movies, play rummy, see who could make the better tasting sub. And once we even did this dog puzzle together that was returned to the store because it was missing a piece, and we both had to fight back laughter when this woman came in to return it with her son, who was literally in tears that all of his hard work was ruined because he couldn't complete the puzzle. And I guess it wasn't that funny, but we both desperately needed to know which piece was missing. And when we put it together at his apartment, we found out that it was just a corner piece of a cloud. And we found this hilarious because who cared about the fucking cloud in the sky of the dog puzzle? And we laughed about this on the floor of his apartment until our stomachs hurt. But maybe he didn't find it that funny. Maybe he only laughed that hard because he was on something. And maybe I only laughed that hard because he was laughing that hard. I guess I would never know. Yeah, I said, turning around. What's up? I saw his chest rise as he took his next breath. So I'm sure you heard that Don is retiring at the end of the month. I had not. Which means Don Jr. is going to be taking his spot as manager. He paused, waiting for me to confirm I had known about this. Yeah, for sure, I said. Meaning there is going to be an assistant manager spot open. Now he was the one to break his gaze and look at my shirt. I wondered if he noticed how faded it was. And I was thinking of letting them know that I was interested. Oh, I said. He looked back at me and softly shook his head side to side as he spoke. But I know Don Jr. snubbed being the assistant manager from you last time. And you're the hardest working person here. And you've been here the longest out of everyone, even longer than Don Jr. And I know I took that big leave from work to, well, you know, so maybe I don't deserve it. He blinked hard, as if he was gathering his thoughts. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that if you want to apply for the job, then I won't. He stopped again, waiting for me to speak. I pressed my lips together and fought a smile. This wasn't the conversation I was waiting for, but it did say something on some level. Zeke knew that Don Jr. was a sexist prick, that if he was given the opportunity to promote either me or Zeke, then I'd be shit out of luck, especially since Zeke used to hook him up with whatever the fuck he was using at the time. It felt good knowing that Zeke, I don't know, respected or maybe even cared about me enough to not go behind my back. I guess I took too long to answer, so Zeke started speaking again. And you're always saying how you're too good for this place, and it's true. You should go somewhere else where you'd be more valued. You still have options, Kate. You really haven't fucked anything up that badly yet. I'm already 38, and I need to move up, start making a little more money, even if it's only an extra $2 an hour or whatever, you know? He chuckled. It wasn't like him to chuckle. And, you know, though I heard more words coming from his mouth, I couldn't make out what they were. I was still trying to process. You should go somewhere else, he had said, right? All of this time I had been waiting for when it was okay for him to be stable and well enough for us to start back up, maybe even something more real this time. But he would be okay with me leaving the store. He would be okay with potentially never seeing me again. He had at some point transitioned the conversation to the cashier's new neck tattoo that had the word beautiful spelled incorrectly. I cut him off. You're going to be a great assistant manager, Zeke. I wanted to quit, to storm right the fuck out of that shitty building and say, you're right, Zeke, I don't need you or this fucking place. And if I didn't need that paycheck so badly, if my mom pitched in a damn dime and didn't steal from me, if I didn't lend $20 to every friend who swore they were good for it, including Zeke at one point in time, then I would have stormed right the fuck out. But I still owed the community college over $2,000, and I was still making monthly payments for the pickup truck that my mom totaled while drunk when I was working an overnight shift 2 years ago at Walmart. And so I didn't see all of these options that Zeke was talking about, but I didn't know what else to say, and so I just said that. And before I knew it, he was hugging me. And from the corner of my eye, I saw this tiny old man trying to grab something off of the top shelf with his cane. And before I could wrap my arms back around Zeke, he had let go and was next to the old man helping him. And so I just stood there watching him reach, not just for the old man's can of tomato soup, but for his goals. He was unafraid and he went for what he wanted. And I wondered if I would ever care enough about myself to do the same. That's it. Thank you.
Oh no, still not working.
Oh.
Okay, we're gonna keep troubleshooting with Jung, and we'll go to Lynn.
Oh, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, I see nods. Yay. So I am Lynn. This is Enyo. She'll probably be here, and off the camera is Kyla. If you hear her snoring, that'll be her contribution. I have some poems from a couple of my chapbooks and some of my newer work. So the first poem is coming from my chapbook, Gravity. One of my family friends once told me that this was a good opener poem, and so I kind of go with that as much as I can. What I want from love. I don't want calm and gentle, or the kind of love that comes in when the tide is high and fades out with the moonlight. I want earth-shattering, a car accident and broken glass that takes weeks to vacuum out. An aftermath so catastrophic it takes months to recover from. I want gravity that pulls me back to the earth and drowns me in the sea. I want black coffee, straight whiskey, and moments that make your breath catch. So much so, I refuse to settle for calm skies or easy sailing. Then, the next poem that I have was a finalist for the New York City Creative Climate Change Awards. So I got to perform in New York City, and it was terrifying, but they gave me a lot of wine, and that was awesome. So this poem is called The Wood Chipper. Hi. We feed wood into the chipper. Circling metal blades act as teeth and devour bark, stumps, twigs. Some of what we shove in still has green leaves or pine needles, still warm from the sunlight because no one has told the branches they're already dead. We do this for hours. Cut a tree, drag the carcass like a deer to be dismembered. It comes out as confetti, wooden glitter, smelling like pine-scented candles, and for several moments, I understand why these smells find themselves in jars on mantelpieces. When the tree falls, when it's clean cut, you can see the rings inside. I count 20, 30 from the one that just fell, the same age as me. And I wonder why I have more of a right to continue breathing, and this being gets torn apart. We go back for one more tree, and the stump is still wet with sap that looks so much like blood. I'm a little offended that my poetry is boring my dog, but I guess that's just how it goes. The next poem was a honorable mention for the Charles Bukowski Poetry Award, and it's called Dysmorphia. Actually, and it's funny because this is actually the dog referenced in this poem, so if you guys can appreciate that a little bit more. He takes a picture of a girl on a lake and a dog beside her, and all I see is the way the sun touches her skin. It's not in a gentle way, sunlight through the tangle of trees. It's a sledgehammer against drywall because she isn't sitting straight, which causes the excess to push together an accordion of skin in a way that literally no other person but me would see. Where straight lines should live, there is a curve, and while most people who would view the photo would see the dog, the lake, the smiling girl, the contrast of light, I see sunlight on too much skin. And so when he hands me my phone back, what should be a treasured moment gets deleted. This next poem is called When Memory Returns. In the morning, there are bruises that I cannot recall how they arrived. There are 3 of them, spread out and circular on my arm, blue and black like my memory. I go to work in short sleeves, sit at my desk, chat with my coworkers. When Laura gets excited, she turns to me, grabs my arm, and her fingertips match up with the bruises that he left me. So this next poem I'm going to read is from my chapbook on becoming a role model. which is from 30 West, and deals a lot of trauma and my family. And so this poem is called Salem, Massachusetts, 2019. My niece asked the tour guide how they used to hang the witches. How did they get them in that tree branch? The tour guide offers options: a ladder kicked out from beneath, a rope over a strong limb while strong men pulled the world out beneath their feet. Sometimes the neck broke. Sometimes the victim struggled to put their fingers between their neck and the rope in the hopes of oxygen. Most times they weren't witches, just poor people, eccentric people, people who decided to have a voice. My niece is 6 years old. She knows nothing of the world yet, and I will show her that they cannot hang us all. And then going back to Gravity really quick. This poem is called Leos. It's probably one of my favorite poems I've ever written. He sinks his teeth into me, canines sharp like lions. He could adjust, could find the perfect vein that connects the artery, could bite down and rip it out. He knows this, and so he does. And I stand for 30 seconds, blood seeping from neck to toe, a flattering red ribbon dress perfectly accentuating my chest, my thighs, my life. And I wonder, was it so worth it to have so much hope that my toothbrush could rest beside his at night? And then another one from On Becoming a Role Model. This one I wrote about my cousin, who I believe is facing Alzheimer's, but she has not been diagnosed yet. So this is called Early Onset Undiagnosed. I watch the words leave her memory and circle back like a scratch CD, trying to find where it left off. She says, "My neighbor has a dog, Slim," and we walk around her yard. The statement vanishes and comes back. "Did you know my neighbor's dog, Slim?" And back and back. "My neighbor's German Shepherd dog, his name is Slim." We repeat conversations, track 9 over again, and I digest it and respond like it is new, like it is ice cream I haven't already swallowed down. She leaves reminders for herself in the bathroom mirror now, notes of when I'll be visiting, but loses track of the book my mother gave her and tells my partner as we leave, "It's nice to meet you," as confusion clouds her eyes because this is our 7th visit this year. I want to stay here with her, guide her memories back to smooth and uninterrupted disk space before the scratches become so deep, her memories are unreadable. And then the last poem, because I've always been told that you should end on a happy note, especially where a lot of mine deals with a lot of sad stuff. So this poem is called Answered Prayers. He holds my hips, reverent as though in prayer. He is a sinner, and I am here to make him clean. He repents his sins, and I eat them away, swallowing them like sacrament. Words vanish to maintain the sanctity of offering. The gods, if they watch us, turn our heads, and we create Eden. I am clay in his hands, and he is careful to smooth out the cracks that are his to heal. Our breath is thunder, his touch is lightning. Fingertips on thighs, cautious, exploring. And when he touches my body, I am his answered prayer. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, okay. Okay, well, technology is not my friend, so this is so amazing. I'm just, thank you so much, Stephanie and Peter, for inviting me back to read with these wonderful young ladies. I'm so grateful, actually, I would just want to thank you for giving me the scholarship to even attend this amazing Winter Writers Getaway. I had a tremendous time there. So thank you for this opportunity to read with everyone. I want to read something from a few years back. It's called The Great Meal. And actually, it started out as a poem that I started writing in Peter's poetry workshop from, I think, 2015. I don't think he remembers this poem, I mean, this material, but it sort of, you know, had it sort of went through a few iterations, and it ended up as a creative nonfiction piece. So it's an essay. It's called The Great Meal. It was published in Agni and then anthologized in 2019 Pushcart Prize collection. The Great Meal. When the bell rang at noon at 5 Ocean Trading, it was time. The swishing of scissors, the clacking of dies, the cutting of 1,000 berets and beanies and bowlers and fedoras, the up-down across ankle pedaling of a sea of sewing machines, even the chattering of the AM radio man or women in the background. Time to rise to something holy. Order lunch. The manager, will call her Miss Cho, was always the first to arrive at the head of the table with good rice. Good rice was important to her and to everyone at the table, for it signified a good foundation. Time, too, was important to her. Someone in her family or church or apartment complex was dying, always dying. On time, off time, in and out of time, dying. Once she had seen a young man set himself on fire in her hometown in Jala province, a college student resisting the militaristic regime that followed the separation of North and South. Another manager, too, had been dying, for as long as anyone could remember, dying of cancer or something. He was the kind of man who by now had become used to all manners of dying, by fire or water, by taste or temper, be it a home fire or home invasion, a lightning strike or not enough light striking inside the brain. He'd seen it all. His final cause might soon have been his liver, his face colored and textured like a tangerine gone brown, pocked and not quite edible. He liked to share bright things, spicy rice cakes or vigorous orangey shade his skin might once have been, or fried fish cakes so red they looked almost alive. Then there was my buddy Jane, a perky 20-year-old who liked to smoke Marlboro Reds and binge drink beer and soju, who had worked there longer than I, this being her second season. She came back for the people, she said. Jane was a people person. As the bastard child of a beer tycoon, she knew how to drink better and more than most middle-aged men. A veteran of all things unfit and outlying, she was like an outgrown prom dress or a truck stop motel on a stretch of an unmarked highway. Sometimes she was lovely and unseasonable like a December rain, not unlike me. She and I were meant to be college dropouts, not factory line workers. We didn't even like hats. 언니, when I save enough to pay my back tuition at NYU, I'm out of here, she said. When I save enough to get to India, I'm out of here, I might have said. It was important for me to distinguish myself from the sad people at Five Ocean. I was acutely aware of being ashamed, not only of my association with a not totally legit operation like Five Ocean that relied on an all cash, all talk, all loose paper business model, but ashamed in general, in a more abstract way, and confused too. Ashamed because confused. So much so that I had become these two abstractions. Ashamed of having to wear a dual identity of sorts, at once an aspiring human with a lofty, though as yet unknown purpose, a comrade in arms with the wretched of the earth, as my coworkers seemed to me then, and the thud of a human spiraling out of control. Ashamed too of having to support myself at such a young age by working at a factory, of saying 5 Ocean Trading, a name that seemed to defy correct grammar. So I made sure to bring something different to the table. Each day, I concocted dishes that my coworkers could neither recognize nor name. Spinach linguine with spam and kimchi, mung bean and raisin salad, turmeric seasoned tofu and cabbage. These were not Korean. The ingredients brought together the cultures that I was confusedly trying on. They did not taste good to the Korean palate, likely because they contained spices and persuasions that were incongruous with the land of the morning calm. Sometimes I'd forget to bring lunch. Sometimes I forgot things that reminded me of my mother, who had died a few years earlier from a growth that started in the middle of her and spread upward. I had seen death before, but her death marked the first real tragedy of my young person's life. Mr. Lee, our boss, always the last to arrive, often brought a lunch bag with a matching bowl adorned with a flying phoenix. "That's a beautiful bag," someone would say. He would look up as though one of the birds had come to life, and with a puzzled look on his face, nod. He had a habit of nodding to all that was said, no matter the content or subject or how he actually felt about it. Alone with me, he spoke of the child and wife. He spoke of his child and wife back home in Korea and how he had lost the one real thing. He had been a kind of double agent for a covert operation in the Korean government. He had betrayed his people, he said, and if they found him, they'd kill him. I didn't ask what all that meant. I didn't ask because Mr. Lee, too, wore the look of someone who, nearing the end of life, yearned to have meaning. Somehow all his life he'd been stripped of that right. Or is it a privilege? He needed to talk without a period at the end of the sentence. I listened, my eyes keen with yearning too for meaning. I listened, just listened. And sometimes, while listening, I imagined his Chinese lover, who had worked on the second floor as manager of the production line. That they were lovers was an open secret. I imagined her wiry arms and legs intertwined with his, a dark sea of sewing machines, filling in the negative space around their snake-tawed bodies. They rarely spoke kindly to one another. They rarely spoke. Their language was not a language to be spoken under or overstood, but approximated into the human, broken into the smalls of backs and knees, beaten into skin, eaten. I listened, just listened. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Jung. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Lynn. So we look forward to seeing you on Monday for our write-in and Wednesday at noon and perhaps next Friday with Kim Atenasio coming. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe, social distance yourselves, but keep writing and keep loving. See you soon.